Hello, this is the Gemsbach, and today's topic is Clue, a film directed by Jonathan Lynn and originally released in 1985. Today, I am going to talk about the cult classic comedic mystery Clue, directed by Jonathan Lynn. This is a definitive cult classic, critically panned in its time, and yet appreciated by audiences for its campy delights more and more each year, and its target punching bag of mystery fiction is, in my estimation, one of the most ripe for being charmingly torn apart.
Are you trying to make me look stupid in front of the other guests?
Don't need any help from me, sir.
That's right.
Lynn, who later directed the highly regarded and lightly comedic illegal drama My Cousin Vinny, both wrote and directed this film.
You guys down here hear about the ongoing cholesterol problem in the country?
With some story collaboration from director John Landis, whose work includes The Blues Brothers, Animal House, and Trading Places.
Remain calm. All is well.
Clue is a film with humble ambitions that deftly surpasses expectations.
Don't worry, there's nothing illegal about any of this.
Are you sure?
Of course, this is America.
I see.
Seemingly discarded and ignored in its time for the gimmickiness of being based on a board game, it is a film which was cared about and well executed at every level, and which cleverly presents a tongue-in-cheek treatment of the entire mystery genre.
I think you had better explain.
Please sit down. Everyone.
Clue is one of the many products of Hollywood's long-standing tradition of turning anything with name recognition into a movie. The movie was based on the North American edition of the board game, which means little except for some minor details like the game being called Clue rather than Cluedo, and a character being called Mr. Green rather than Reverend Green.
Oh, who cares? That guy doesn't matter.
From details like these, it is clear that the film was designed to be accessible and familiar to North American players of the game, and it could easily have just ended up being a phoned-in cash grab along these lines. It is not the only movie ever to be based on a board game, but it is easily one of the best. Unless the original Jumanji doesn't count, since its source work invented its game, in which case, Clue would become unambiguously the best.
Why is the car stopped?
It's frightened.
To fully appreciate Clue, though, it is far less important for one to understand the board game, and far more important for one to understand its narrative context, which means knowing a little about the tradition of the mystery genre in television and film.
We're trying to find out who killed him, and where, and with what.
Growing up, my father and I watched our way through complete collections of shows and films from the mid-20th century starring iconic actors as detectives, like Basil Rathbone as Sherlock Holmes, Peter Falk as Frank Columbo, and Margaret Rutherford as Miss Marple, adapting and building on the immense popularity of mystery writers like Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, the writer behind Sherlock Holmes, and Agatha Christie, the writer behind both Miss Marple and Hercule Poirot. Over time, such films and shows have come to rely on a system of structural and dialogical tropes.
That is the important part, as far as you're concerned, I'm sure.
No, Mr. Trundle, the important part is how much money am I going to get?
And anywhere that there are established tropes, there can be parody.
I came into money during the war when I lost my mommy and daddy.
There are plenty of structural patterns, based on the detective visiting an unfamiliar place, or being approached by a suspicious stranger, for instance, after which, once a dead body surfaces, a work of mystery could be expected to be built. The most often utilized, and most often lambasted, in affectionate parodies like Clue, as much as in full-on farces like Murder by Death, is the scenario wherein a murder mystery takes place at a small social gathering in a fixed location, leaving a finite pool of suspects, often all with apparent motives.
Murder in the middle of the night, a lot of guests for the weekend, everyone's a suspect, that sort of thing.
Indeed, the number of murders which these works depict happening at high-class dinner parties and weekend vacations could make anyone understandably skittish about socializing. Clue takes place almost entirely within one gigantic mansion, marrying the one location trope to the scope of the board game. The mansion itself becomes emblematic of the narrative, as the progressively deepening mystery is matched with the discovery of circuitous secret passages and exploration of new areas. Both the mansion interior and the weather outside become sources of tension and comedy. Meanwhile, the dedication to the singular location frames the parodical proceedings, with locked doors leading to as much humor as they do threat.
There's no alternative. I'm just gonna have to break it down. Go.
And the density of the home's maze-like construction putting characters in unexpected situations.
Coming. What's this? Another door.
Another important aspect of this particular sort of mystery, for the purposes of Clue's jokes, is its use of characters. In order to establish a great many distinct possible murderers as quickly as possible, these single-location mysteries are almost always jam-packed with cartoonish, one-dimensional stereotypes, from languishing intelligentsia
Looks like it might have been done by an untalented 12-year-old.
to fast-talking executives
I'm trying to run a business here.
to put upon servants.
I know when they'll be hungry and the food is ready. I know when they'll be tired and the bed is turned down.
Almost every sort of classic mystery character imaginable is accounted for in Clue by the actor's portrayal of individuals named after the game pieces, whose traits are then dialed up to their absolute maximum. Acclaimed character actors abound in the cast. Here are just a few examples. Christopher Lloyd plays Professor Plum, a man at once pretentious, overbearing, and lecherous.
It's you and me, honey bunch.
Eileen Brennan plays Mrs. Peacock, a high-power, high-chat career hostess, full to the brim with insecurity and eccentricity.
Oh, please, I've never heard anything so ridiculous. I mean, nobody could blackmail me. My life is an open book. I've never done anything wrong.
Madeline Kahn plays Miss White, an aloof femme fatale with an excessively passionate and homicidal past.
He was always a rather stupidly optimistic man. I mean, I'm afraid it came as a great shock to him when he died.
The hectic mess of the cast is then tied together by the brilliant, grandiose, fastidious figure of Wadsworth the Butler, played by Tim Curry of Rocky Horror Picture Show fame, who generally curates the events of the plot.
Ladies and gentlemen, please return to the study. Everything will be explained.
Now, why do I say that this is the greatest parody of the mystery genre, rather than just being a great mystery parody, or even just a funny mystery, as described in the previous section? The answer to that question involves moving into spoiler territory, so if you're someone who hasn't seen the film and is spoiler averse, let me leave you with 2 points. 1, I strongly recommend that you watch Clue.
No.
And 2, if the version of Clue you access lets you choose between all endings and any other option, please be sure to select all endings. Trust me.
I have absolutely no idea what we're doing here, or what I'm doing here, or what this place is about, but I am determined to enjoy myself, and I'm very intrigued, and oh my, this soup's delicious, isn't it?
Alright, here come the spoilers, because it's time to talk about Clue's most incredible stroke of genius, which was largely inaccessible to critics and audiences when the film was in theaters: the way its mystery is solved. The crown jewel of this movie, only fully available in home release versions of the work, is a lengthy climactic sequence that pokes fun at the mystery genre's only truly immutable staple: an excessive, minutely detailed, energetic account of how and why the crimes were committed.
It is I who need a cue for being so slow to notice the tricks that were being played on me with regard to the time of the murder.
Take a step back for a moment and consider your own experience of watching or reading any sincere work of mystery. In theory, the story unfolds like a puzzle. You slowly acquire the clues and attempt to construct the entire solution. There may be misleading notes, twists, and turns, but with the exception of unique outliers like Columbo,
I'm sorry, I don't follow.
one of the principal appeals of the genre is that an astute viewer, or reader, could solve the crime themselves using only the details presented in the narrative. If watching or reading a traditional whodunit with friends, each person might even voice their suspicions as to which character is the guilty party as the story unfolds. But in the vast majority of situations, unfortunately, when the solution is finally revealed, something else is revealed as well: the artificiality of the entire mystery enterprise. The work says person A did it, but there is still person B, and often even person C, who could just as easily have done it, and had similarly plausible motives. In the end, the author of the mystery simply selected one of the equally valid possible solutions and declared that it was the true solution. The creators of Clue are certainly not the first to notice this transparent contrivance in most mystery writing. About 10 years earlier, Murder by Death, in a considerably worse comedic mystery in terms of pacing, camera work, music, and actual humor, yet with considerably better contemporary reviews, Truman Capote lists off the many grievances that mystery fans must have with conclusions written by mystery authors.
You tricked and fooled your readers for years. You've tortured us all with surprise endings that made no sense. You've introduced characters in the last 5 pages that were never in the book before. You've withheld clues and information that made it impossible for us to guess who did it.
But rather than stepping back from this issue in that kind of meta fashion, Clue leans forward face first into it.
I shall need to take you through the events of the evening step by step.
It presents 3 equally viable, full-featured, breathless solutions to the mystery, complete with answers for the overriding motivation of the primary culprit or culprits.
Who was Mrs. Peacock taking bribes from? A foreign power. Her husband, the senator, has influence over defense contracts.
Logistical explanation of how and when each murder was committed.
She crept into the study, picked up the dagger, ran to the kitchen, and stabbed the cook.
and addressing of seemingly contradictory or misleading motives.
This all has nothing to do with my disappearing nuclear physicist husband or Colonel Mustard's work with the new top-secret fusion bomb.
No. Communism was just a red herring.
Rather than simply retreating into a lazy critique of equally lazy twist endings, Clue's tripartite ending extravaganza embraces a deep understanding of the fact that even under the best of circumstances, with logical validity and well-founded explanations, there is still a deep and abiding arbitrariness to the creation and later dissolution of mystery in works of fiction.
So, he had the motive.
You all had a motive.
And what's almost more incredible about this ending is how it does all of that while also tying back in so elegantly to the work as an adaptation of the board game, with the game's ever-shifting and interchangeable list of culprits, weapons, and locales.
But if you want to know who killed Mr. Body, I did. In the hall, with the revolver.
So the structure is all in place for a rather special piece of movie making, a really sincere attempt to translate and adapt a board game into a worthwhile film that also happens to be an exceedingly clever send-up of mystery as a format. And yet I have still left out a great deal, from the tactful implementation of minimal slapstick
This is incredible!
Not so incredible as what happened next.
to the clever repartee that permeates the script,
You were once a professor of psychiatry, specializing in helping paranoid and homicidal lunatics suffering from delusions of grandeur.
Yes, but now I work for the United Nations.
So your work has not changed.
to the amazing way that the movie toes the line between moments of genuine tension and disarming swaths of charming comedy.
Just checking.
Everything all right?
Yep, 2 corpses, everything's fine.
A line which other movies often inelegantly trample. Clue is a film that does not take itself too seriously at any time, and in which its creators seem to be having as much fun as its audience. Whether you are a longtime fan of mysteries or merely a fan of good, lighthearted comedies, this is a movie about which I hope you will take the hint.
Go away!
But your souls are in danger!
Our lives are in danger, you beatnik.